So the first week, I served in Takoradi, which was our most west zone, and it was just me and my trainer, Elder Mariku from Ghana. He was an older gentleman, 27, I think at the time. So even that had its interest and an interesting, just because you don't even know what to expect when you're out in there. But it was cool getting to be with someone who was a little more mature, someone who'd been on the mission a little while. So I learned a great deal with him. In fact, I was his companion later in the mission, so we became like brothers. So it was good. I got there, and it was hard because the language we were supposed to speak was English, and which was the national language was English. But every city, every village, as you call it, all of them had their different dialects. And so the two primarily was one called Fanti and Tree. And so you don't learn it at the MTC. So you either get lucky and get somebody who knows how to speak it and you kind of learn and pick it up. But as for me, I don't know if I'm justifying me not learning the language, but I just felt like speaking languages, I guess, was never a strong suit for me. And so I never picked up the language. But even being there the first week, that was tough because there'd be some lessons where we'd be teaching and I had no idea what was going on because it was in a different language. And so, sometimes I'd have to sit there. My companion had to translate. So that aspect was a little hard. Getting adjusted to the food, just like anything. You're in a totally different part of the world with people who care about different things. The people are awesome. They're always smiling. Great, great people. But it was an adjustment. And, the first couple months were an adjustment, and it was hard, but it was, and man, walking that much, holy cow. That was tough too. At the end of the day, you're just so dead tired. You just want to go lay in bed and fall asleep with your backpack on and shoes still on. So, but you get used to it, and it's great. So I guess that's what I remember the first week. And there's no milk. There's no milk in Ghana. You have to make this powdered milk, and so there's no cereal. You have to adjust to the food. I remember what I ate for breakfast. I had like toast and like this chocolate spread, and so that's a bummer because I love cereal. So there's no American food in Ghana, so that was tough too. Anyway, that's what I remember. So now where it's at, I've been home for 3 years, and both of our missions have split. So Accra has split, Cape Coast has split, so now there's 4 missions in Ghana. And we're now reaching close to the north border. When I was there, it was really the southern, all of the southern side of Ghana, but now missionaries are being sent to the north part. So it's exciting. There's definitely some growth going on in Ghana. It's a good time. There's a man by the name of William Billy Johnson, who's kind of the pioneer for Western Africa to bring the church there. And we got to meet him one time in the temple during our mission, so it was really cool to meet him and hear his story. But just briefly, if you want to get more history, there's a great movie called Pioneers of Africa, and it has a lot of this man's journey in all of Africa in general and the growth there. So great movie if you ever have a chance to watch it. But what I can give you briefly is a very spiritual man looking for truth. I had a dream one day about seeing a book with an angel on it. Turns out that he was praying one day, and underneath his bed was a book, lots of books, and one of them was that same Angel Moroni. And it was one of the versions of the Book of Mormon that had the blue cover with just the Angel Moroni. And so he opened it up, but the page was torn out that said, The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so this is the book he saw in his dream, and so he knew it was what he was supposed to be doing. He just didn't know what church it belonged to. And so he read it, and he's like, this book is true. And he knew it was true, and he knew that God wanted him to start preaching it. Unfortunately, he just didn't know what church it belonged to, and so he actually started forming a group, and I hope I'm not making any of this up. This is what I remember, so if I'm wrong, sorry. It's a faulty memory. But what I do remember is he started a group where he just started getting people together and started teaching them from the Book of Mormon. Long story short, I think they finally figured out that it was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then they started sending over messages to the church headquarters saying, hey, bring over missionaries, give us more pamphlets, tell us what we need to do to get baptized and things like this. And it took a long time. They had to be patient. It took many years from the time that he first got that book to when missionaries were finally sent. But when they were finally sent, there was just an explosion of growth. I mean, thousands. When the first missionaries, there were a couple of missionaries that went to Ghana in West Africa, and they baptized thousands of people who were ready and willing to follow Christ. And so that was really neat. And the church has just been growing ever since. What was interesting was there was what they call a freeze, where the LDS church was not allowed to practice for a time. And so what was cool is Willie, Brother Johnson, took it upon himself to say, hey, even though we can't formally come to a church, we need to be meeting at our homes. And so they kind of secretly gathered, and I can't remember if they partook of the sacrament or not, but they got together and almost like a home teaching type or a family home evening thing, got our group together, and they still worshiped God and taught each other from the pamphlets they were given from the church. And so even with that freeze, they were still faithful members. And then they finally, the country of Ghana took that away. And like I said, it's been growing ever since. And it's just, it's getting ready to explode. So as the theme is this year, hastening of the work, salvation, that's Africa is one place that's really, really happening. So it's an exciting time. The northern side of Ghana is predominantly Muslim, and then the southern is Christian. I don't know why that is, but I do know that there's a separation there. And so that's why that's why the missionaries as of right now are predominantly in the southern areas, just because there's more success there. But like I said earlier, they are starting to spread to the north, so which is really cool. And what's funny is you'll see a bajillion unfinished buildings. Like they are known to build, like to start something, but then they run out of money. And so then they just like leave it there. And so there's tons and tons of unfinished walls, which are just cement. My understanding is there's not like a lot. I know here there's a lot of wood framing and stuff like that. They don't do that very much there. It's a lot of the cement as a foundation, and then the walls and things like that. They don't have a lot of carpet. They do just, they're like a plastic carpet thing, or just like a covering over cement. Walls are just typically painted. And so yeah, in fact, that was the number one. When I got home, I like laid on my carpet because it was something like I just wasn't like, you always have your sandals on, because if not, you're just walking on dust and dirt pretty much the whole time, because apartments and stuff just get really dirty just because there's not really the same finish as you'd see there. So that's basically that, yeah. And then you have some mud type. When it's a little more remote, you have houses with mud a lot, and sticks and stuff like that. So there are a few sites in Cape Coast, because there's a slave trade, or I don't know, the port, what you'd call it exactly. But there are slave castles actually in Cape Coast, which are now historic places to visit, which is sad, of course, because as I toured there one day, you can just see the way they were treated. I can't remember who it was. It might have been the Danish. Is that a group of people? Who were the Danish? Whatever country that is. Is that a country? Is Danish a country? No, it's like... It's people who speak Danish. Some group of people would do a slave trade through there, and so just the way they mistreated the Africans was really hard to see. And but that's part of their history, is just being able to overcome that, and now they're a free people and live in liberty, and so it's kind of a fun not a fun historical fact, but an interesting piece of history for them. Yeah, very, very green and stuff. I thought I'd go there and see elephants and tigers and lions and cheetahs, but no, that's definitely not Ghana. There's this place called Kakum, which is in Cape Coast, and a lot of missionaries like to go there in P-Day, and they have like these bridges from tree to tree, and apparently you can see elephants and stuff, but I never did. And so that's more South Africa to see all the wild game and stuff like that. You'll see a lot of insects, a lot of bugs, a lot of spiders. So there's some monkeys. I did see a monkey one day, and he scratched my companion, so we were worried he was going to like die from like monkey poison or whatever it was. But really, where I serve, not a lot of chances to see animals, unfortunately, which is too bad. Um, yeah, just, I mean, I'm sure if you go on a mission to Ghana, you'll be aware of malaria. Malaria is transferred through mosquitoes, so there's tons of mosquitoes. Make sure you sleep in a mosquito net and take your malaria pill. I got malaria once, and it was the worst thing ever. I thought I'd rather die than be alive. So that's really what it is. It's a lot of green, luscious scenery with a lot of insects and bugs and stuff. So they're definitely civilized. I mean, I lived in one area which was really remote and just like a straight up village, where the houses definitely weren't as nice. Just like cement and not really finished like you'd see maybe in America, but you still have really nice homes people live in, and they're not doing ridiculous things like their own tradition stuff. People, I would say it actually is very Americanized. I mean, people are up to date with the movies and the and the lingo and like the stars and stuff like that, and so you'll have some more tribal areas, but they're not like what you would expect to see in a movie, like some tribe. I mean, they're just normal people living life. So on their money, their currency, it's called CDs. The Ghanaian CD is like a dollar bill, and I can't remember if it's on every one of their bills. They have just all the presidents. So they take pride in that, the people who have led their country. And I don't remember names at all anymore. But I know there's a good history there of taking pride in all the presidents. Kind of like we do one president, but they have all their presidents on each bill. You know, it's pretty constant throughout the year. We're right on the equator. It is so hot and so humid. And even in the apartment, there's no air conditioning. There's just fans you have. If you don't have the fan on you, you're sweating. Like before you even go out of the apartment, you'll be in your shirt and tie, and your shirt will be like drenched. And it's disgusting. But you just kind of get used to it. And that's year round. They do have a rainy season, which I'll be honest, I can't really remember what it was, but I think it was in the summer, which April, June, or like June, July would rain a lot. But other than that, just hot. And they had a dusty season where dust would just roll in. But always 100% humidity and very, very hot. We always wore short sleeve shirts. I wish I still had. I would have worn one if I had it, but I don't have it anymore. Short sleeve shirt. I never wore a suit once my mission, and only wore a long sleeve shirt when we had authorities come in. So yeah, that was it for the weather. Really, pretty basic. That's thanks to Hollywood. I feel like Africa is known for, which is actually I don't say that's true. Not, Hollywood doesn't paint the right picture. There's some definitely dangerous places in Africa. In fact, I think South Africa is like the number one like most crime in any country in the world. So, but Ghana is like one of the safest places on this planet Earth. Especially, I think it's like rated number one of not of the world, but of Africa. It's like the safest country. They have a great relationship with America and some of the other big time countries, and so they're a very peaceful country. Very, very nice people, very humble, and so there's not a lot of danger. I mean, I had one guy come up to me and he had like a blade in his hand. He was totally drunk though, so, and he was like bleeding. And he said he was gonna like kill me or something, but I think he forgot what was happening, and then he like fell over to the side, and that was like really it. Other than that, people love you. They love the gospel. They love God. They love Jesus, and the fact that you're preaching about Him, they'll just open up to you. And so there's really not. I was never really in danger ever. So that shouldn't ever be a worry if you're going to Ghana. It's a very safe country. Yeah, my favorite one is my first area, Takoradi, like I said, was where I had my first Christmas. And I remember the first one, when I was getting near Christmas Day, through the streets, there's these group of people, and they call masquerades, which we, all know what those are, but they do the way they dress up is a little differently. It's like it's almost like a piñata looking costume. It's like you'd want to hit this person and expect candy to come out. And so, like when seeing all this group of people just walk down the street, just chanting and having a good time, That's a tradition in the country, especially in Takoradi. And what's cool is each city has like their own way of dressing up. And Takoradi were the ones that look like piñatas. And so I actually got one when I was there, so I was way excited. I brought it home. It scared all my siblings and parents. So, but that's just a fun tradition for them, is dressing up and just going around town. It's like a parade, just going through the city. Number one is because if you're American, if you're white, they will try and take advantage of you because they think you have sika, that's another word, which means money. They think you're made of money if you're white. And so they will try and take advantage of you. So don't be afraid to bargain, whether it's a taxi cab. That's how you get around. It's called trotros. Trotros are just like those, it's like the Scooby-Doo van. Really sweet. They just pull up and they have their courses they take, their routes. Trotros are cheaper than taxis. Taxis, you have to pay a little bit more. But you can always get people to come down on the price, so don't be afraid to bargain. In terms of traveling, I mean, you have your companion, so he should know how to get around, but trotros are the number one. The only people who had access to cars were the assistants. Other than that, you're mostly on foot. And then if you had to go long distances, that's where you use the taxi or trotro. Or some areas had bikes. But that's what I did. That's how you get around. A lot of walking. There's banku, which is like fermented corn, which to me was disgusting. They eat it with okra soup or okra stew, which like okra, I don't even remember. They just like mash it up, and so it's like really sticky. And I kind of like that. They have it with crab a lot. And this one time I ate a crab, and this was disgusting. You're supposed to, like, you can't always clean out crabs, and you just gain courage as a missionary. I remember the first time I ate a whole fish head, just like, you just do those kind of things. And so I just had this fish head, and I was just like, oh, whatever. And I just like ate the head, and I can't believe I ever did that, but it actually wasn't that bad. But this crab I ate one time, and it still had like feces, we'll say, just to be politically correct. Still in the crabs when I bit into it, it was like the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted in my life, and I was like grossed out. They'll have octopus in the fufu and the stew. Goat tongue. That was fun. A lot of fish. So the banku, and then they have red, which is beans and plantain, except it's not, I don't think it's boiled. It's not boiled, like grilled with the red, so that's pretty good. I always enjoyed that. Fried rice, gotta love the fried rice, and just any rice in general. And then deep fried chicken was always good. For breakfast, they had rice porridge, which was like the most delicious thing ever, with fresh bread. Oh man, I could give you some of that right now. I'm trying to think of other crazy foods. Oh, kenke. I don't even actually remember what kenke is, but that was also kind of weird. I didn't really ever like it. You ate it with like salsa type, just a spicy dish. And then yams, which is like potatoes and cassava with stew. Oh, that was also delicious. A lot of eggs. People loved making like breakfast egg sandwiches and stuff like that, which was really good. And yeah, that was really it. There's not much more variety than that, unless I'm just forgetting. Specific to Ghana and probably West Africa, probably all of Africa actually, is a thing called fufu. And what that is a mixture of plantain, which is a banana type, I don't even know if it's a fruit or it's something. Plantain and cassava. And cassava is like a potato. And so you boil both of these things, and after you boil them, you take turns. They have this big pistol, they call it, which is a stick with a little flat rolly thing, and then a mortar. So you have pistol and mortar, and then you just place one at a time, and then they just softly smash them. And then you add one, you keep going, until you've taken all the cassava, and as you keep adding, it's bigger, until it becomes like this ball of dough kind of type thing, because it's very sticky. Actually, it's not sticky. It's just this weird ball-looking thing. And then they take it out, put the plantain in, do the same thing, and then they mix the two. And by the time this thing is big, these guys who like pound this stuff, whether it's for a restaurant or just at home, they are ripped. I mean, these guys are so strong because they're just And so one of the service, we would always do this whenever we'd walk by, part of just getting to know people and be friendly. We'd always go and jump aside, and then we'd do it for them. And they'd be like, here's another great word is Obruni. Obruni means white guy. And so they'd be, hey, Obruni. And then they say something else, which I don't know how to say. Anyway, they just loved having Americans. They love white people, especially the little kids. I mean, they'd come up to you and they loved like your hair and stuff like that. Anyway, back to fufu. So that was one of our things as missionaries we'd love to do, is just help people pound. It was like our service to them. And but it took me a very, very long time to finally like this stuff. And so now that when you smash it together, you have these like round balls they put into just this bowl, and then they put soup in it. And this groundnut soup, which is like this peanut butter soup, which is delicious. And some of these other soups, they're not coming to me right now, but just some delicious soups. And the way to eat it is, it's kind of, they don't care if Americans do this because they understand, but you're not supposed to eat with a spoon, you eat with your fingers. And so you use your fingers to kind of, get in there and pinch, and then with your thumb you create a little hole, and it acts like a spoon. You get the soup in there, and you're not supposed to chew either. You're just supposed to swallow. And so I have a terrible gag reflex. And so I remember the very first time I was fed fufu as a young greenie missionary, and I just look at this thing and I'm like, there's no way I am eating this. And my companion was eating pieces just like this big, and I was eating pieces just like little pills. I was just like, and by the time he was done, I still it didn't even look like it went anywhere. Like it was just expanding in the bowl, and I was like, are you kidding me? Anyway, as time went on, you get used to it, and then you end up just loving it. But yeah, that's fufu. And there's some other foods there, but that's really, talk about eating something and not wanting to move. That they have what you call like beer belly here in America. Fufu belly is the term there, because that stuff just like sits in your stomach and it's not going anywhere. And so if you eat that for lunch, you just like want to go home and sleep. But it's good. So kente is a cool material that they put together in patterns, and so it's kind of a crazy looking tie, but a lot of dresses are made out of this, so I thought I would just represent. So malaria is it's like the worst thing, one of the worst things in this world that I've ever experienced. And it just hits you. People have said it's just like a train, just like running you over. It comes suddenly and it just rocks your world. It really just destroys your body. It weakens your immune system, vomiting, things coming out of your body that you don't normally like. And you get the chills. You just stop functioning, really. You'll shake. You'll have the worst time sleeping. And it's caused by a mosquito, so that's why it's important. And they said that the mosquito that passes malaria is really out from 5 to 7. That's like the time frame at night. So that's the time to really be cautious of if you're outside, to either wear repellent or have taken your medicine to prevent that. But it really is just not a fun thing to go through. Your body will shut down and you will not want to do anything for like a week until you like fully recover. And so it really just rocks your world. And unfortunately, the night I got malaria, I had made my mom sent me some macaroni and cheese. And so I was way excited to eat it. But because that was the night I ate it, I happened to throw it up. And I think anybody can relate to this. When you throw up something, whether it's food poisoning or just sickness, it is so hard to want to eat that particular food ever again. And so still to this day, macaroni and cheese just brings back that memory of awful, awful sickness. So I'm still trying to get over that. But so the first time I was a zone leader, I went and I was teaching a lesson. It was me and my companion. No, I was on split, so I was with 2 Americans, and I wanted to like impress them, and they both knew the languages because they both had trainers who just had picked it up, and kind of one of those like they were lucky to be in the situation they were, and I'm jealous of them because they knew the language. And so I went into this lesson. My companion, my trainer, helped me memorize the first vision in the language, and so I was teaching everything in English, and then all of a sudden switched over to the language and then switched back just for like that one part. And they just like looked at me and they're like, what are you doing? And I don't even know if it even made sense. And it probably didn't, but it was fun. And they laughed at me, but now we're good friends. So anyway, random story. Well, it's like Spanish and Portuguese, so they're very similar. So in Tree, how to say hello is etisen, and someone will say boko, which means fine. And then Fanti is, instead of etisen, it's etiden. So very similar, and if you know one, you kind of know the other. Very similar to Spanish, Portuguese, and so I still don't really know the difference between the two. But Yabatia, that's we'll meet again. I love that word. And then African's favorite word is Yami Adom. Nyami meaning God, and Adom meaning grace. So by the grace of God is kind of the phrase. And so whenever you ask somebody to come to church, they'd always say, oh, Nyami Adom, meaning by the grace of God, I'll be there. That's like their phrase, which means they'll never be there, which is frustrating. So it's like, no, God wants you to be there, so you can be there. And you're like, no, by the grace of God, we'll be there. So that was a fun word. That's all I really knew, let's be honest. Oh, and then akom de mi pa. That means I'm very hungry. I know that one too. So, and mabre means I'm tired. Yeah, just phrases like that. So, Obama was elected president for his first term when I was there, and holy cow, that was a party for all of Africa, especially Ghana. And they just like loved the fact that there was a black man as a president, and they just like thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so, I don't know if this is a tradition, but something they loved is they literally put Obama's face on like everything. Cookies, underwear, pencils, any building you could see, you saw Obama. And so they were in love with Obama. And then they'd ask me every time, he's like, do you love Obama? And I'd be like, I don't even know what's going on. You just kind of ignore him. So our mission, love my mission president. I thought the way he handled the mission, the way it was organized was just so great because we weren't so much focused on the numbers, the key indicators every week, even though it was important. But what we had were mission goals. And they happened every like 3 months. They lasted 3 to 4 months. And then we get a new one. And it was always centered on baptizing families, baptizing future leaders. The scripture is in John, when Christ called the apostles and said that your fruit should remain. And the scripture's not coming to me, but that was the big thing we focused on. Is when we baptized somebody, we wanted to make sure that they were going to stay in the church. And it is just a fact that when you can baptize a family, or what we called a future leader, someone who had a job, someone who spoke English, someone who was well grounded in life, those were the people who were really gonna, once they came into the church, were gonna stay. And so we always had goals, and in order to be successful in that goal, every single missionary had to participate. And so my very first goal of being in the mission was baptize a family by Christmas. And that was like our gift to God. That was our present to him. And so, which was cool because we weren't focused about ourselves. We were focused on what would God do or what would Christ do if he were here? Because we are his representatives. And so every missionary had the opportunity to be part of baptizing a family because there wasn't one mission goal. I can't remember how many there were. There were at least 10. And we were successful in every single one. And there were no easy goals because they pushed us to the limits. I mean, there were some goals that we finished the day of, and it was like, we need a miracle to make this happen. And so, so just that in general is being part of a mission that really focused on unity and working together. And so my last mission goal was baptizing a husband and wife. And the very last Saturday of my mission, we had a baptism. And this is a kind of long story, but long story short, we were teaching this guy, and he was a great future leader, but he wasn't a family. At least we didn't know at that point. He came to church once. We started teaching him. He was great. I mean, this guy just loved the teachings, and this guy was going to get baptized. Like, we just had faith in it. And then the next Sunday he came, I remember him saying, hey, can you guys teach my wife, after church? And we're like, we didn't even know this guy was married. And so it just like blew us away that this guy was married and had 2 kids. The time we went and taught him at his house, apparently his wife and his 2 kids had gone to like visit his mother type thing. And so we just like didn't even think. And so it just like blew our minds that this awesome guy, I was actually married and had 2 kids. So it was like perfect. And the very last Saturday of my mission, we baptized that family. And it was like the coolest thing ever. We just loved working then. I loved my last area. And what's even cooler is 3 years later, today, through great old Facebook, was talking to another person we baptized and said, hey, do you know this man? His name was Frank and Sarah. Hey, do you know Frank? And she said, yeah, Frank's the second counselor in the bishopric. And his wife is like the first counselor or the secretary. It's one of the counselors in the primary. And I was just like blown away because, I mean, that's why you go on a mission, is to find people like that, and find fruit that will remain. And these are a family that has not only remained in the church, but are actively serving in great positions. And so I was like way excited about that. That was one of my more spiritual experiences, and a cool experience just to participate in the work that way, and just to see that even when I'm not there and 3 years later that they're still active in the church. So soccer is like the biggest thing. I mean, and I love sports. I'm a sports guy, and so this was sweet because you could just walk outside and you'll see kids playing soccer. They'll just create their own little field and they'll just be playing. And so it was a big thing for me to have fun with kids, just to, even wearing a shirt and tie, you just kind of go in there and start playing and kicking the ball around and just having fun with them. It was a great way to be with the people. But one of my areas, we had a coach of this like semi-professional soccer team come to our church one day, and we started teaching him, and so he told us when practice was, and we said our goal was to get their entire team to come to church. And so to kind of build a relationship of trust, we went and actually had football or soccer practice with them on Tuesdays. I think the price on Tuesdays. So on Tuesdays we'd go and, we dress up in our soccer uniforms and then go play with them just for fun. And these guys were good, so like we sucked, or we weren't very good. But it's just fun playing with them. And this is a full team, so they had 22 players with a few coaches, and afterwards we teach them, and then invite them to come to church. And I remember the Sunday after the time we went and played with them, the entire team just like showed up to church. And so we had like 25 new people come to church, and it was like the greatest thing ever, because on our numbers that night, like we reported like a whole soccer team, like a semi-professional soccer team came to church, and we taught them all. Unfortunately, they weren't all from that area because they were just like traveling. So nothing really came from it. Well, I can't say nothing really came from it because you never know what seeds you planted, but it was just way cool to like not just be worried about like teaching somebody, but just being with somebody, whether it was going to their soccer practice and just, mingling with them and then teaching them afterwards. And to me, it worked for me as a missionary to do things that way. And to see them come to church one day, I was just like, this was awesome. So that was one of my more fun experiences as well. So my advice for a newly called missionary, especially those going to Ghana, would be, first off, congratulations. And secondly, there's no better place that you could be at this time in your life. The mission, as many people quote it, is the best 2 years. But also I want to make sure you understand that it's not just the best 2 years, but also a very hard 2 years. But it is totally, totally worth it. And I'm excited for you. And this will be a great time for you to represent the Lord, and be his hands and do as he would do. And so there's work involved, but it is some of the greatest work you'll ever be able to do. Looking back, it's especially when you first get there. There were hard times when I first got there, but that is when you grow the most. I mean, there's often times that the Lord breaks us down in order to build us back up. And so there was a time in my mission when I was really down, and then I just remember hearing a voice and a spiritual prompting saying, do you know what? You are God's child, and he loves you, and he is always watching over you. And so that is something I do know to be true, is that God is our Heavenly Father, and that we are, during our missions, literal representatives of him, and that he is always watching over us. And even when the times are tough, that's when he's even closer to us. And love your mission. I love my mission. It was, like I said, one of the greatest times of my life, and a great foundation whereon the rest of your life can build. And so work as hard as you can. Also have fun. Be patient, be humble, work with your companions, and love the people. And you will have the time of your life.